As a request from Romeo, today we're going to take a look at SOFI. Now, I know nothing about SOFI other than the fact that there might be a professional sports stadium named after them, but that's about it. So let's cut this short and get to the chase. And so this is the monthly chart on SOFI Technologies. In the upper left, you can see the symbol is SOFI, and we only have 2 years of information, and that's one of the big reasons that I wouldn't necessarily be in this stock myself. However, from this top here, we can see that through 2021, things were declining. And then finally it broke, came on down. We've got a nice dish bottoming and basing here, and it looks like we're just on the upside, say by 1 or 2 months or so. So it looks like it is improving. Moving on down here, the volume also has increased on that way down, and that is decreasing on the way up, and that's not necessarily a good sign, but I think there's enough volume that it's not going to hurt the stock too much, but I would like to see volume pick up. Here into the MAC, this is a full cycle almost from this point here moving through over here. The fast line crossed up and through on the way up, and then of course it crossed through on the way down, and that gave us the low prices throughout this last year or so. But the fast line is closing in on the slow line, just a small separation for a little bit of volatility, but it is also at a -2. It's not too negative, but that will leave room for sideways movement or volatility. The stock looks like it is, or at least this oscillator looks like it's improving. Fast line should cross through the slow line here within the next month or two, moving on up to that zero line, hopefully gaining some strength. And that strength improvement is shown here in the histogram. Nice dish, and moving on up toward that zero line. Same thing here with the price rate of change from that maximum negativity here. You have improvement. We are moving on up with the fast line just crossing through the slow line, but we're at a -10, so we have a ways to go before we get to that zero line. That will take some time, but it will continue to improve. I think that's what the momentum is. The RSI, relative strength, it's at a moderate weak 45.30, but it is closing in, not 50 or midline. Closing in, I should say. Moving here into stochastics, that shows a little bit of improvement, but we don't have too much of a chart to show that. Same thing here in the Williams. I'm a bit surprised that the Williams isn't a little bit healthier, closer to that midline, but I think it will in time. Nice bottoming and dishing. Moving on up. One last look at that price chart. It is not a stock that I would normally be in, but it does look like it is improving. I think that momentum will continue. Now, let's go to the next chart. We're going to bypass a weekly chart and just go straight to the daily chart. And now we're looking at the 6-month daily chart, and you can see that dish, the bottoming and basing, and then the move on up. We did hit this top here, and it sold off pretty hard coming on down. Current price is $6.62, more or less. Moving here to the volume. Volume again is not really showing too much, but the MAC does. You had a nice rollover at this point here, and you had the cross through with the fast line crossing through the slow line. So it is on its way down, at least by the daily, and that could continue on here for a while. Again, the monthly chart shows that positive momentum is occurring, but of course we have the daily showing that at least for the time being we're going to be heading on down, but it is relatively proportional with this move on up in the way the price chart looks. So I would imagine that the way down is going to look somewhat proportional as well. It has more downside to it. Their separation between the fast line and the slow line seems to be increasing, at least by a little bit. We go here into the histogram, and you can see it had a pretty sharp drop, and the separation of the fast and slow line is increasing. So we're continuing on down here. We're at a -0.1. We'll probably go a little bit lower than here and here, but I think that's all right. into the price rate of change, also showing things are moving on down. But I like this sawtooth right here. It is giving a little bit of a fight, wanting to stay above that zero line, but it looks like it might lose out here because it's heading on down with a little bit of acceleration. Also acceleration on the downside shown by the RSI at a moderate 44.66, just crossing through that 50 line. So it definitely is weakening. What you want to wait and see and find out if you're going to hang into this stock is what happens down here. Is it going to have a nice bottoming and basing and then turn on up, perhaps like we had here? Well, I think that's what it wants to do. You're going to have to watch it closely. Moving here into the Williams, pretty much the same thing. We just crossed into that oversold territory, but as you can see here, we were in that territory for a few months, maybe even longer if you go back to this point there and through. So back up to the price chart, it does look certainly like it's weakening. I don't think that's any surprise to you given that rollover we had here. Now, once again, to the proportionality, we're struggling with the 20 EMA, and we're going to come on down here probably to the 50 EMA, and hopefully it can hold in this area here. If it does hold in this area here, then perhaps you'll have another move on up for a move that perhaps might eclipse the 825. I'm not quite sure yet. We'll have to wait for, say, a couple of weeks or so, see how this bottoms and base, where it bottoms and base. As long as the bottoming and basing is above this level here, then I think the probability is on your side. But there are no guarantees, and all the risk is yours. Good luck. ChewDog out.